While the Egyptian forces no longer pursued the Hebrews, this area was and is still considered part of the nation of Egypt. Their border and their control reaches into what is now known as the Sinai Peninsula. What do you have? It's the best quality.
Good one.
Thank you. And now I'm local. He's the one who We set?
We are running behind schedule. Let's just put it that way.
Why is that?
What?
Because you want us to get started?
What's the words on the paperwork?
The guard has told us we can't go in until we've paid more money. Mohammed and Ryan and Ali are trying to figure out how to handle it.
They say you paid only for the sunset. What about the sunrise? Okay, we will pay. We want to pay cash here. No, you have to pay at Cairo.
Yeah. No.
Okay, let's us ride right now with our permits for the sunset to save time. No, you have to pay that and we'll go.
We are learning a lot during this production trip. That you can have a binder full of permits, and it's just not enough. It's just not enough.
We're afraid we're not going to get up there.
Yeah. There's a reason we're the only ones down here right now.
Luckily, we are working with a crew, that's doing the best they can to help just spackle in all the gaps.
Be late.
Do we want you? Yeah.
Because you're sure that the permits go through, you just want us to get a head start.
Yeah, of course.
So if this comes through,
Yes, we're gonna have to move it quickly getting up the mountain because I think because if we're gonna catch that sunset, we're gonna be pushing it. So.
Okay, you say the permits are in. Mohammed says we're good to go.
Mount Sinai. It's one of only a handful of places on Earth where all three of the world's major monotheistic religions, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, hold great value. However, there's one problem. We don't know with 100% certainty where the biblical Mount Sinai is, and the location is hotly contested by scholars and YouTube commentators alike. Our team chose to visit the traditional site near St. Catherine's Monastery in the Sinai Peninsula, named Jebel Musa. Jebel is mountain in Arabic, Musa referring to Moses. Numerous sites across Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan are thought to be a possible location for Mount Sinai. Two primary sites are fiercely contested here at Jebel Musa and Jabal al-Lawz in Saudi Arabia. We are not planting a flag saying this is the site, but instead we're using this as a backdrop to consider one of the most important moments in all of Scripture, the giving of the law from God to his people. So, we're hiking up. We finally got on the trail, maybe 3 hours late. And this is my guide, who has been doing this for how many years?
17 years.
17 years. And he's a part of the tribe that goes back many generations here. What is the name of your tribe?
Jabaliya.
Jabaliya?
Jabaliya, it's meaning people who live in mountains.
And down the valley you can see the monastery of St. Catherine where they found Sinaiticus. We're on the way. What is this building up here?
This is church. This mountain is called Transfiguration Mountain.
Ah.
And God said to him, look to this mountain.
Oh,
This
look
day-
to this mountain.
Yes.
And God passes this way.
Yes, Transfiguration here. The main purpose, The mountain will be in front of the Moses mountain.
So Moses would have hid in a rock in a cleft up there.
Yes.
And then God would have passed by here.
Transfigured.
Here.
Yes. The story, this is the place. This is the smashed one.
What's that?
You said we have to move back.
Yep.
You're right. Okay. You want a sunset? Sunset.
Just as it wasn't easy for the Hebrews who were now thrust into the wilderness out of Egypt, we too discovered that getting to the top of this mountain would prove challenging.
An 80-year-old did this.
It didn't say if he was chasing the sunset.
This is amazing and exhausting. So we're in the shade catching a breather and then we'll keep going. Yes. What is it like to live next to Mount Musa?
Oh, it's very calm, peaceful. It's full of peace and love.
Do you get to meet many people who come?
Yes, every day. I meet so much people here. We like it when you find the mountain here.
Yes.
What do you feel for you?
Exhaustion. We gotta hustle. We've gotten to this spot, about to hit the steps, and if we do this right, we should catch the sunset. We've got a pretty aggressive pace, but I think we're gonna do it.
Climbing the 700 steps to the top. I haven't been keeping count. I think we're gonna make it.
That is incredible. For Moses, he was supernaturally preserved. By the end of his life, it was talking about how God had preserved his strength and his vigor, and his eye wasn't dim. After 3 months of journeying and getting here, to make that hike several times, that's impressive. That is just really impressive. Oh, look at those colors come out.
What are you thinking about right now?
The presence of God. This was the place where Moses met God in the burning bush when he was taking care of his flocks in Midian, and God commissioned him. And up until that point, God had not been revealing himself to his people and interacting with his people for centuries. And so Moses brings God's people out of Egypt to this place to meet the Lord and to enter into a covenant relationship with him. And Moses goes up and down this mountain, and when he comes down from interacting with God, his face is shining because he's been interacting with the presence of God. The struggle to get here is worth it. Oh man, it was worth it. And even for the Israelites, they did not know what it would be like to meet God out here. They just didn't know. They hadn't done it before. Exodus wasn't written. It had not happened yet. For them, it was all new. So they were heading into the unknown. They were coming out here by faith. And God was trying to establish a cultural memory for them that he was the God who had delivered them.
Hallelujah! Look at that, look at that.
Yeah.
That's the way I should be walking all
You made it with a cane?
I made it with a cane.
Good job, man. Where are you from?
West Virginia.
West Virginia?
Just the mountains.
Congratulations. And you made it in time for that. What does it mean for you to be out here?
I don't care what it was going to take. I wanted to make this journey.
Yeah.
Because
I believe in one God.
I do too.
And besides him, there is no other.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
I prayed all the way up, and here, I'm on the top. And
I'm excited.
And that's what life is all about, isn't it?
Yeah.
You keep on trusting God.
Yes.
Believe in Him. Believe what His Word says. Guarantee you'll make it to the top.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
I'm excited for you.
I'm excited.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to me.
Sure. God bless.
You too.
Now Mount Sinai was wrapped in smoke, because the Lord had descended on it in fire. The smoke of it went up like the smoke of a kiln, and the whole mountain trembled greatly. As the sound of the trumpet grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and God answered him in thunder. The Lord came down on Mount Sinai to the top of the mountain, and the Lord called Moses to the top of the mountain, and Moses went up. And God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not bow down to them or serve them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God.
So off to the side of where we were standing, underneath the mosque, are these steps going down into what is called the Cave of Moses. And there's not much to it. Pretty small. On Mount Sinai is where Moses asked to see God's presence, for God to dwell with his people. Some people think this is the traditional location where God let just a small piece of his presence be witnessed by Moses to comfort him and to reassure that he was going to go with them despite what had happened with the golden calf while Moses was up on the mountain. Not much room. There may not have been much room. But to have a spot like this that's been maintained and thought about is pretty special. After years of traveling like this and going to religiously significant places, it's rare to be there by yourself. And that's actually one of the joys of it. You get to meet and interact with people, some who hold different beliefs than you, some who share very common beliefs with you.
Because this is the story. There are other mountains that are easier to get to, less military to deal with and government regulations.
Well, this is one of the few locations, you know, the Temple Mount in Jerusalem is one of them, but this is another where you have this intersection of the three monotheistic religions of the world. I mean, you've got Judaism and Islam and Christianity, and they all stake a claim to these events.
And so this is a story that everyone connects to. Not just a story of one people coming out and being made into a people here. That's a human story.
Through the Exodus itself, through the judgments, through the Red Sea parting, God was going to make his name known. In one sense, he was going to make himself known to the Israelites. And then with Pharaoh, he was going to help Pharaoh know that he was the Lord. And then he's going to help the world to know that he is the Lord. And that's still going on. You know, God is making himself known through what happened in the Exodus. And the culmination of that happens here. when we teach the Bible classes with the kids, we focus on the birth of Moses, slavery, the difficulty.
Part.
It's the exciting part. The plagues, the deliverance through the Red Sea.
You get here and it's all law, and it's like, okay.
Right. But we don't think through God establishing his presence among his people in the closing chapters.
Right.
We get to the golden calf and teach the golden calf, but we don't always jump forward into Moses trying to intercede and God revealing himself to be merciful and full of everlasting love.
He's incredibly patient, because the people were just, get us out of here and in the promised land, but God wanted them to stop here, and they stayed here for almost a year, so that God could make them into this covenant people. Some of the things that happened in a location like this. We passed by a place earlier. I can imagine 70 elders and Moses and Aaron and his sons right there eating before God. And I don't know what happened there, but
you can imagine it.
I can imagine it.
Yeah.
And being in a place like this, God did those things, and the people responded in those ways.
Out of all the nations of the earth, he was making them his people. And so later in the Pentateuch, when you get to Deuteronomy, and Moses is reminding the Israelites of their journey and of their deliverance and all of these things, he talks to them about what nation is there that heard the voice of God from the mountain and lived. No other nation had that experience.
Every nation can see their gods.
Yes.
But here's a God who's not seen.
But he was heard, right?
Because to hear his voice is to have an opportunity to respond, to build a relationship. I mean, I'm hearing your voice right now, and you're communicating thoughts and ideas, and that's what God wants with his people, is he wants this two-way relationship where we're responding to each other.
Earlier, we were all sitting around after we had been up there for the sunset, and we're talking about our aches and our pains, and this was really hard, but it was worth it. There is a bonding process that takes place through turmoil and strife and suffering. You had this large family that got developed in Egypt over 400 years.
Right.
So they had this shared experience of being delivered, this shared experience of coming to Sinai, this shared experience of hearing God give them law. As they keep going, they're going to continue to have these shared experiences and a refining of their law and their culture. And God's preparing them for that. So by the time they reach Canaan, when they get there and they're ready to go in, they're not just a family anymore.
They're a nation.
They're a nation. And God's point is, what other nation in the history of the world started that way?
So the law, the Ten Commandments, the significance of that, why those 10 words?
The first 4 words are highlighting the importance of their relationship with God. This is how you're going to interact with me. The last 6 talk about how to interact with each other on a very high level.
It's not everything they need.
It's not everything they need to know, and so it gets refined, and then you get to Leviticus, and then you get more details. But key to all of that, God starts the 10 words with, I am the God who delivered you out of Egypt. He's not just giving them law to give them law. He attaches his law with what he has done for them and how he has revealed himself to them in a very personal way. Right. So it's not just some ambiguous moral code, it's connected to Jehovah and what they've come to learn about Jehovah personally.
So the 10 Commandments are not like, here's how to be good so that you get credit with God.
No,
and he likes you and you're good with him. But it's, here's how you respond to a God who's saved you.
Yes.
And to love God and to love each other and to be this covenant people that God saved you to be. So you can see why it's not just saving them so important, it's bringing them and making them all that he purposed them to be. Yeah. Lovers of God, lovers of each other, this family.
The story of Exodus doesn't start with Exodus 1. It starts with Abraham's family and how they come into Egypt. But going back to the promise God made to Abraham in Genesis 15.
Right.
Abraham is heartbroken over the fact that he doesn't have children yet.
Right.
That promise has not been fulfilled. Where he has him look up, God challenges him to count the stars. And he says, that's how many kids you're going to have someday. I'm going to keep this promise to you.
But now it's not just Abraham's family. God says, no,
right.
My family.
Well, and he even predicts there's going to come a time where your children will go into a land,
right.
and I am going to deliver them out. And so at Mount Sinai, that has been fulfilled. Abraham's children are numerous, and God has delivered them from the land that he knew they would be enslaved in.
This was a new day for God's people. The giving of the law was a pivotal moment in the forming of their nation. This moment would go with them all the way to the cross of Jesus. But while God was making a covenant with his people, the Hebrews were already breaking the law, and something dark and sinister was taking place far below in the valley.
When Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, the people gathered themselves together to Aaron and said to him, "Make us gods who shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." So Aaron received the rings of gold that were in their ears and made a calf. And the people said, "Behold, the gods who brought us up out of the land of Egypt." And they rose up early the next day to worship. They sat down to eat and drink, and rose up to play.
It was fascinating to me while we were in Luxor that Ahmed, the Egyptologist, showed us a hieroglyph that had a couple of images on it that gave us insight into the golden calf. So the two images in the hieroglyph was an image that represented gold, or the gold skin of the gods, and then a bowl representing the strength of the gods and associated with the king. And when you take that imagery and then think about what Aaron fashioned for the Israelites, as Moses was up on the mountain for 40 days, they became concerned. They said, "We don't know what's happened to this guy. We need someone to go before us. So make a god for us." And Aaron fashions a golden calf out of the gold that they've collected. So they're using this imagery from their slavery days in Egypt to represent Jehovah. It uses the word Lord. This is the God, this is the Lord who has led you out of Egypt. It shouldn't surprise us that you have this cultural influence that drives what they end up doing, but they associate it with the Lord. And in the exact same moment, the Lord is up on the mountain with Moses trying to communicate how unique and exclusive he is, and the irony of that. And so I don't think there's any way that I can fully appreciate Moses' frustration and anger when he comes down and sees the people in this idolatrous orgy around this Egyptian-influenced idol and associating it with Jehovah. And so even though the people have physically been delivered from Egypt, they have these remnants, these ways of thinking, even religiously and spiritually, that are still ingrained in them. They've physically left Egypt, but emotionally and spiritually and in so many ways, they're still tied there. And especially that generation. You see it in the generation that immediately experienced it. And God is trying to set them free from that.
It was at Mount Sinai that God fulfilled his promise to bring his people out of Egypt. But more than that, God was trying to get Egypt out of his people.
It's been a little bit over a week now since we arrived in Egypt, and we're done. Pretty much phase 2 of the production, leaving Egypt. It's the second chapter, so who knows what sort of work we're going to have to do when we get there, but I'm looking forward to just switching gears a little bit.
Okay, so it is it's either 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock at night. We're not really sure what time zone we're in. We are sitting in a holding area waiting to clear customs and get our passports back so we can go. I'm beginning to believe that the only time of day that you can go through customs is late at night when you're tired. Next stop is Jordan.